In other news tonight, House Democrats bearing down on whether Team Trump tried to obstruct the congressional probe, which echoes some of the pattern of alleged obstruction outlined in the Mueller report itself. Now, there are Democrats who say the report already proves enough crime to begin impeachment hearings. Senator Warren takes that view. Others say the next step is for Congress to hear directly from Mueller's sources for the damning stories in the Mueller report, hence this escalating fight over whether Don McGahn will testify. The Mueller report cites Trump's dealings with his White House team, including McGahn, Bannon, and Priebus. And Trump proved canny, though, about reaching beyond those federal employees who had many of their own reasons to avoid joining in a potential criminal conspiracy. So tonight, I want to dig into the facts that show actually how far Donald Trump would go, because when some of those aides refused to carry out his bidding, Trump turned to someone off the government payroll entirely, his former and first campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. So this takes you all the way back to after Don McGahn famously refused to fire Bob Mueller, despite the president's orders in June 2017. May have saved the Trump presidency. The Mueller report reveals that after that, Trump didn't stop, he didn't let up. He instead turned to Lewandowski, who was out of government, asking him to deliver a message to Sessions to press him into his speech to declare Trump shouldn't have a special prosecutor and that Sessions would have to then, quote, limit his jurisdiction. Now, that's a big ask. Lewandowski failed to meet up with Sessions, and then Trump pressed him in another private meeting a month later, saying if Sessions did not meet with him, Lewandowski should tell Sessions he was fired. What? I mean, you don't have to be an expert at this to know that cabinet members are not supervised, let alone fired, by random people outside the government that may know the president. Well, Lewandowski knew that, too. He did look into trying to deliver Trump's message, but he worried about getting caught. Mueller writing that Lewandowski wanted to pass the message to Sessions, but in person rather than over the phone, and not at the DOJ because he did not want a public log of his visit, meaning he was feeling guilty. Now, Mueller found that Lewandowski never actually did send the message, partly because of what I just read to you. Those efforts to try to hide it made it harder to pull off the plot. And like so much in this Mueller report, this incriminating material, it's not from Trump critics or random outsiders. The footnotes for these stories are mostly Lewandowski, a little bit of John Kelly, and some other evidence. So these are the receipts of that plot. Now, this looks like bad news for Mr. Lewandowski, who's actually appeared on this show several times. In fact, in one appearance this February, I specifically pressed him to answer if President Trump asked him to ever get involved with Sessions or the DOJ probe. And this is important.
I don't ever remember the president ever asking me to get involved with Jeff Sessions or the Department of Justice in any way, shape, or form, ever.
Ever. Any way, shape, or form. Blanket denial. That's obviously not true. Lewandowski did remember it because under penalty of perjury, he remembered Trump asking him to get involved with Sessions in so much detail that it was just 10 months earlier that he was telling Mueller all about it. So Lewandowski was not only making a false statement in our interview, he was making it knowing that he'd already told Mueller the opposite. So there were good odds that that testimony about all of this, about what Trump asked him to do with Sessions, would later come out. So I ask you tonight, why would he catch himself in a falsehood like that? I'm asking you because when we asked Mr. Lewandowski to explain himself or come back on the show, he has not responded. So let me go ahead and go forward. One clue here comes in how Donald Trump learns about what his aides say about him to Mueller, because the New York Times report that the president hasn't even read the Mueller report himself, and that witnesses know his view of them actually just depends on how they and their Mueller testimonies ultimately portrayed on TV. Now, Corey Lewandowski knows Trump's habits better than most. From the start, he may have calculated that he could stay on Donald Trump's good side by deceiving his old boss on TV while telling the truth about his old boss's efforts to thwart the probe to Mueller. So just think about that for a minute. The man who ran Donald Trump's presidential campaign may have concluded that he actually owes Bob Mueller the truth, but can get away with deceiving his own old boss, Donald Trump, that he says he's so loyal to. And Lewandowski may figure he'll continue to get away with it as long as this part of the Mueller report is basically never covered on television. Which means, I guess, Mr. Lewandowski is hoping the president is not watching this broadcast and never hears about it. If the president were to hear about it, it appears, unless Mr. Lewandowski calls us back and gives us more context, it would appear the president will learn that some of his most senior aides, who he believes to still be loyal, are not willing to tell him the truth. And he'd know that they appear to continue to use television, not to promote him, although they do that, but to manipulate him. That seems like the kind of thing the president might have an interest in knowing. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.